So when I was just a kid, it was the first time that I heard the story of the creation of the world and sort of how it was told in the book of Genesis. And it says in there that God created the heavens and the earth and then did all that and decided it was good, and then God created light. And when I was a kid, I thought that I had this image that like God went about like creating the whole world like completely in the dark, and was probably getting like really frustrated, sort of stumbling around. Like sort of imagine like maybe she like scratched her knee on a mountain and then like twisted her ankle in a canyon. And then the next thing in the way that the book of Genesis, the story goes, is it says that God created light and said that light was good. And I was like, I bet she thought light was good after stumbling around in the dark like that. I kind of imagined it like me when I'm in the dark in my bedroom and I'm like trying to find my like earplugs like on my nightstand or like my favorite pillow and I can't, and finally like I get up and I'm like, oh, just forget it, I'll turn the light on and figure out where it is. So anyway, something like that is what emerged in my overactive imagination as a child. There's another tale about origins. It's very different. It's a modern one, and it was created by Robert Bella Wilhelm, and I would like to tell it today. It explains the way, sort of like the story in the book of Genesis. It explains the way that things came to be, but specifically how light came into the world. In the beginning, in the very beginning, when the Great Spirit created all of this, the Great Spirit gave gifts to each of the animals. The Great Spirit gave each one a cedar box in which it contained that animal's gift. And one by one, the boxes were opened. The first box contained water. The second contained the mountains. The third contained all of the seeds for all of the things that would grow. The fourth contained the wind that would carry the seeds to the far off corners of the world. So one by one, all of the boxes were open except for one. That was the box given to Seagull. Seagull took the box and hid it under his wing. "It's mine," he exclaimed. Now, in this box was all of the light in the world. So, since Seagull didn't open that box, in the beginning, there was darkness. So the animals pleaded with Seagull. Rabbit said, "If there is no light, how will the grass grow and how will I eat?" Robin said, "If there is no light, how will my breast grow red?" Fox said, "If there is no light, how will I see the burr that is stuck in my tail?" Bear said, "If there is no light, how can I tell a friend from a foe and invite them into my house?" But the more that they pleaded, the more important Seagull felt. The more they asked, the tighter Seagull held on to that box. And so finally, after some time, crafty cousin Raven tried his hand. "What's in the box, cousin Seagull?" he asked. Seagull responded, "You know what's in the box, and it belongs to me." Raven smiled sweetly. He told Seagull how generous and smart and handsome he was. It didn't work. Raven begged and asked and pleaded with Seagull. That didn't work either. Finally, Raven got angry and made threats. That didn't work either. Nothing worked. So Raven thought and thought, and as everyone knows, when Raven thinks very hard, his thoughts make things happen. So he finally thought, Seagull is causing so much trouble, he deserves a thorn to be stuck into his foot. Now, because there was no light, Siegel never saw it coming. And all of a sudden, he gave out a cry. "And what's the matter?" Raven asked. "My foot," cried Siegel. "My foot, it hurts." "Let me see," said Raven. Raven felt around until he came to the place that the thorn was, and when he found it, crafty Raven pushed it in further. So Siegel cried out. "I'm sorry, Siegel," said Raven. "If only I could see better. If only I had more light. Maybe if you open your box just a little bit so that I could see." So Siegel opened the box ever so slightly, and some tiny lights floated out and up and became stars in the heavens. Raven squinted, searched around until he found the thorn, and then gave it another shove. Siegel cried out, but Raven said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, Siegel, but there's still not quite enough light. Is there anything that you can do about that?" Siegel grudgingly opened the box a little bit wider. A soft light floated upwards, and lo, there was a moon in the sky among the stars. Once more, Raven bent over and looked, and once more Raven felt around, and this time he gave such a mighty push to the thorn that Siegel screamed and flapped both of his wings, and the box fell down, and the lid flew off, and suddenly the sun streamed out in a great burst. And so, in the beginning, there was light, or something like that. Now, this story ends by informing us that, to this day, Siegel still hasn't gotten over the whole thing. That's why you'll often find him standing with one foot in the air. It's true. So it's hard to miss that the great festivals of light are upon us. It is that time of year where traditions celebrate by lighting candles, stringing lights, burning fires. For each tradition, light means something different. The Hanukkah menorah represents the victory of the Jews against their oppressors. Diwali lamps burn for Lakshmi, the Hindu goddess of luck. The candles on the Advent wreath are lit in anticipation of Christ's birth. Now, in the American milieu, where all or most of these are present, it is hard for them not to, blend together into a kind of similar or generic meaning. Now, the other day, I was looking at the funny section of the holiday greeting cards at Safeway, and I saw one wishing a happy Christmahana Kwanzaa. It's funny, but it can also present a sort of false closeness between the different traditions, I think. It's a closeness where the individual beauty and specificity of each tradition is ignored. I think it is really important to remember the specific reasons that each tradition has its own rituals around this time of year, and not to pretend it's all for the same reason. But I will also say that the celebration of light can honor a very real human connection with each other. And I think that human yearning, that yearning for connection is something that crosses over into different traditions. Many of the traditions celebrate by bringing family and friends together at this time of year and by finding more warmth and kindness with one's fellow human beings. And that, I think, touches upon our common vulnerabilities and needs as human beings. Here, our aloneness and our isolation is lessened. There is a story that is told by the playwright Moss Hart. He is the same person who wrote the Pulitzer Prize-winning play, You Can't Take It With You. He tells this story in his autobiography entitled Act One, and it is a story from his childhood in early 20th century New York City. He writes this: "We hurried on our heads bent against the wind. Tugging at my father's coat, I started down the line of push carts. I would merely pause before a push cart and say, with as much control as I could manage, look at that chemistry set, or there is a stamp album, or look at that printing press. And each time my father would pause and ask the pushcart man for the price. And then there was the look and the silence. And without a word, we would move on to the next pushcart. Once or twice, my father would pick up a little toy of some kind and look at it and then at me as if to suggest that this might be something I might like. But I was 10 years old and a good deal beyond just a toy. My heart was on a chemistry set or a printing press. And there they were on every pushcart that we stopped at, but the price was always the same. And soon I looked up and saw we were nearing the end of the line. Only 2 or 3 pushcarts were left in the line. And my father looked up too, and I heard him jingle some coins in his pocket. In a flash, I knew it all. He'd gotten together about 75 cents to buy me a Christmas present, and he hadn't dare say so in case there was nothing that could be had for so small a sum, which indeed there wasn't. As I looked up at him, I saw a look of despair and disappointment in his eyes that brought me closer to him than I have ever been in my life. I wanted to throw my arms around him and say, Dad, it doesn't matter. I understand. This is better than any chemistry set or printing press. I love you. But instead, we stood shivering beside each other for a moment, then we turned away from the last 2 pushcarts and started silently back home. I didn't even take his hand on the way home, nor did he take mine. We had never been on that basis. Nor did I ever tell him how close I felt that night, that for a little while the concrete wall between father and son had crumbled away, and I knew that we were 2 lonely people struggling to reach out to each other. So ends the story. And I have to say that I wish Moss Hart's story did not end there. Well, there is a deep connection that emerges between the two. There's also a fundamental sadness that they could not express that experience to each other. But there's also a cold truth in that, I think. I think about the times in my own life when I should have reached out to someone else and decided it would be awkward to do so, or assume that the other person already knew what I was going to say anyhow. Often there is a lingering thought afterward, like, what would have changed if I had reached out across that divide of loneliness or isolation that can settle between human beings? The psychologist and theorist Brené Brown would say that this is a common human experience. It's one of the most common human experiences, and yet it's also one that we very often shy away from. It's that experience of very real vulnerability that it takes to reach out to another human being. That vulnerability can be messy and hard, and it can prevent us from reaching out. But I think it is through our vulnerability that we can be a light for one another if we decide to open that part of ourselves for others to see. Too often we are like seagull, clutching onto it tightly. But that vulnerability, if we release it, is a tremendous gift. It is a light in the world. It can make ourselves and others feel less alone. So my wish for you in this season of lights is that you are able to reach out and that others are able to reciprocate. You may find that that gift of vulnerability will be more valuable than any material item you may give. my spiritual companions, I love you. Blessings on your journey, and amen.